Reluctant promises. Nathaniel Reed adjusted his platinum cufflinks with practiced precision, staring at his reflection in the penthouse window. At 36, he'd built Reed Technologies into a billion-dollar empire through calculated decisions and emotional detachment. The skyline of Seattle spread before him like a circuit board of lights, orderly, functional, and entirely under control. Unlike his personal life. The Winters family has accepted all terms, his assistant Julian informed him, sliding the final contract across the glass desk. The marriage will proceed next month as scheduled. Nathaniel nodded without turning. And the prenuptial agreement? Signed without hesitation. Ms. Winters didn't even have her lawyer review the addendums. This made him turn. That's unusual. Julian shrugged. From what I gather, she's quite traditional. Believes marriage is forever. Nathaniel almost smiled at the naivety. His own parents' marriage had been a 30-year business arrangement. That ended when his father found a younger model and his mother secured half the family fortune. He'd learned early that relationships were transactions with inevitable expiration dates. This marriage was no different. A strategic alliance between Reed Technologies and Winters Agricultural Innovations. Old Man Winters had made it clear. Access to his revolutionary sustainable farming patents came with his daughter's hand. It was archaic, but Nathaniel needed those patents to launch his global sustainability platform. The elevator chimed, announcing a visitor. The doors parted to reveal Thomas Winters, weathered and imposing despite his 70 years, and beside him, a woman Nathaniel recognized from the dossier, but was unprepared to see in person. Sophia Winters wore a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, her chestnut hair falling in soft waves around a heart-shaped face. She carried herself with quiet dignity rather than the entitled confidence he'd expected from an heiress. Nathaniel, Thomas's voice boomed across the minimalist space. Time you properly met my daughter. Sophia stepped forward, extending her hand. Mr. Reed. Her voice was gentle but not timid. When their hands met, Nathaniel noted her firm grip and the absence of artificial nails or excessive jewelry. Her only adornment was a vintage watch that appeared to be a family heirloom. Ms. Winters, welcome to Seattle. Sophia teaches kindergarten, Thomas explained, his pride evident. Insisted on working despite not needing to. Something flickered in Sophia's expression, perhaps embarrassment at being discussed like a resume. I find purpose in it, she said simply. Nathaniel gestured toward the sitting area. Please. As they discussed wedding arrangements, Nathaniel observed her. While Thomas dominated the conversation, Sophia listened attentively, occasionally offering thoughtful suggestions. She wasn't what he'd expected, not a vapid socialite or a rebellious heiress, but a woman with depth and composure. One last thing, Thomas said as they concluded. My daughter has certain traditional values. She's saving herself for marriage. Sophia's cheeks flushed. Dad, that's hardly... It's important he knows, Thomas insisted. Old-fashioned, maybe, but principles matter in a world lacking them. Nathaniel maintained his professional mask, though inwardly he was recalculating. Virginity was an antiquated concept in his world of mergers and acquisitions. I respect Ms. Winters' personal choices, he replied diplomatically. After they left, Julian raised an eyebrow. Well, that complicates the wedding night. Nathaniel turned back to the window. The arrangement remains beneficial. Personal compatibility is irrelevant. But as Seattle's lights blurred before him, he wondered if he'd miscalculated for the first time in years. Paper flowers. The Grand Wellington Hotel's ballroom sparkled with calculated opulence. Crystal chandeliers reflected in polished marble, white roses and hydrangeas cascading from centerpieces that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Nathaniel stood at the edge of the dance floor, champagne untouched, watching his wedding reception unfold like a meticulously choreographed business function. Across the room, Sophia conversed with guests, a vision in ivory lace. Her gown was elegantly modest, high neckline, sleeves that covered her shoulders, a silhouette that hinted at her figure without displaying it. The antique pearl comb securing her veil had belonged to her grandmother, she'd mentioned during their sparse pre-wedding interactions. "You could try looking a little less like you're at a board meeting," came a familiar voice. His younger sister Olivia appeared beside him, resplendent in emerald silk and characteristic bluntness. "It is essentially a merger celebration," Nathaniel replied. Olivia rolled her eyes. "She seems nice. Too nice for you, actually. The winter's patents are revolutionary. They'll save millions from food insecurity while boosting fourth-quarter projections. I've heard the pitch." Olivia sipped her champagne. "But have you actually talked to her? About anything that isn't schedule-related?" Nathaniel frowned. Their conversations had been efficient, focused on wedding logistics and public appearances. She'd been amenable to everything, requesting only that they include a charitable donation to children's literacy programs in lieu of favors. "We understand. Our arrangement, does she?" Olivia nodded toward Sophia, who was now kneeling to accept a small, somewhat crushed paper flower from a young boy, presumably one of her students. The child's parents looked mortified, but Sophia beamed as if she'd been handed a treasure, carefully tucking it into her bouquet alongside the premium blooms. Something tightened in Nathaniel's chest at the genuine warmth of her smile, a smile he hadn't been the recipient of yet. "Just remember she's a person, not a contract clause," Olivia said, squeezing his arm before departing to rescue a waiter from Thomas Winter's lengthy dissertation on sustainable irrigation. The reception proceeded, according to schedule. They cut the cake. She didn't smash it in his face, thankfully. Shared a choreographed first dance, during which she followed his lead flawlessly despite his rigid posture, and graciously accepted congratulations from Seattle's elite and the agricultural magnates of the Midwest who comprised her family's circle. At 10:45 p.m. precisely, they made their exit amid a shower of lavender buds, biodegradable, her suggestion. The elevator ride to the penthouse suite was silent. Nathaniel loosened his tie while Sophia gazed at the illuminated Seattle skyline through the glass elevator walls. "It was a beautiful wedding," she finally said as the doors opened to their suite. "Thank you for accommodating my father's traditional expectations." It was mutually beneficial. The words came automatically, and he immediately registered their coldness as she flinched slightly. The suite was immaculate. Champagne chilling, rose petals scattered across the turned-down bed. Soft lighting creating an atmosphere of intimacy that felt jarringly at odds with the businesslike nature of their union. Sophia stood awkwardly in the center of the room, still in her wedding gown, looking suddenly younger than her 28 years. "I'll give you some privacy," Nathaniel said stiffly, retrieving his laptop from his overnight bag. "I have some emails to address. Take whatever time you need in the bathroom." She nodded, retrieving a small overnight bag of her own before disappearing into the ensuite. Nathaniel heard the shower start and tried to focus on his screen, but found himself reading the same paragraph repeatedly. When Sophia emerged 30 minutes later, she wore a modest silk nightgown in pale blue, her damp hair falling in waves around her shoulders. She smelled of vanilla and something floral, not the expensive perfume from the wedding, but something simpler, more intimate. She approached him hesitantly, holding a cream-colored envelope. "Before anything else happens," she said softly, "I'd like you to read this. Please." Nathaniel stared at the envelope, his carefully constructed world suddenly, inexplicably, trembling at its foundations. Midnight Confessions. The envelope felt unexpectedly heavy in Nathaniel's hands. His name was written across the front in elegant cursive, not typed, not dictated to an assistant, but personally inscribed in blue ink that had smudged slightly at the edge. Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped in her lap, watching him with those clear blue eyes that seemed to see more than he was comfortable revealing. "What is this?" he asked, business instincts automatically suspicious of unexpected documents. "Just my thoughts," she replied. "Things that are easier to write than say." Nathaniel had built his career on reading people, on anticipating moves and counter-moves. But Sophia Winters, now Sophia Reed, remained frustratingly unreadable. Not calculating or manipulative, just authentic, in a way that his world rarely allowed. He opened the envelope carefully and unfolded several pages of handwritten text. "Dear Nathaniel, I know our marriage isn't conventional, and perhaps it's foolish to hope for more than a mutually beneficial arrangement. But as we begin this journey together, I wanted to share what's in my heart rather than let assumptions define us. People often misunderstand my choice to wait for marriage. It wasn't made from fear or religious guilt, but from a desire for meaning. In a world where everything is instant and disposable, I wanted something that mattered, something worth waiting for. I've never confused intimacy with love, but I do believe they're most beautiful when connected. I don't expect fairy tales, but I do hope we might find something real between us, even if it grows slowly, even if it looks different from what others expect. I've watched you these past weeks. How you listen more than you speak. How you remember details others miss. How you treat everyone from executives to waitstaff with the same respectful attention. There's kindness in you that perhaps even you don't recognize. I promise to respect your space and privacy. I promise honesty, even when it's difficult. I promise to be a partner you can trust, both publicly and privately. I don't ask for promises. In return, only that you read these words and know that whatever happens tonight or in the days to come, it will be with an open heart." Sophia Nathaniel read the letter twice, something unfamiliar expanding in his chest. No one had ever seen him the way she described, or if they had, they'd never bothered to tell him. In his world, perceived kindness was often mistaken for weakness. Attentiveness was simply strategy. He looked up to find Sophia watching him, vulnerability evident in every line of her body. "I'm not," he began, then stopped, uncertain how to continue. "I'm not good at this, at feelings, at relationships." "I know," she said simply. "My parents' marriage was a war disguised as an alliance. I've never seen a relationship that wasn't ultimately transactional." Sophia nodded. "My parents were different. They genuinely loved each other until my mother died. It wasn't perfect, but it was real." "And you think we could have that?" He couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. "I think we could have something authentic, whether or not it looks like my parents' marriage or anyone else's." She moved closer, her proximity sending an unexpected current through him. "I'm not asking for declarations or promises you can't keep. Just presence. Just tonight, could we be present with each other?" The business mogul in him recognized a negotiation, but the man, the part of himself he'd buried beneath spreadsheets and acquisitions, recognized something else entirely. "I don't want to disappoint you," he admitted, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. Sophia smiled then, a real smile that reached her eyes and transformed her face. "That's the most honest thing you've said to me since we met." She reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek with tentative gentleness. "We can start there, with honesty." Nathaniel caught her hand, holding it against his face for a moment, before turning to press his lips against her palm, a gesture more intimate than any kiss they'd shared for cameras or guests. "Honesty, then," he agreed, setting the letter aside, and taking both her hands in his. "I'm terrified of this. Of you. Of what you make me feel." Her eyes widened at the confession. "Tell me what you need," he continued, voice low. Not what you think I expect, or what your father arranged, or what society demands. What do you, Sophia, actually want? She took a deep breath, and in that moment something fundamental shifted between them. A foundation laid not in business, interests, or family expectations, but in the radical simplicity of truth. Morning light. Sunlight filtered through the partially drawn curtains of the penthouse suite, painting golden stripes across rumpled sheets. Nathaniel woke first, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar weight against his chest, Sophia's head. Nestled in the crook of his shoulder, her breathing deep and even. Last night replayed in his mind, not just the physical intimacy which had been tender and unhurried, but the conversations that stretched into the early morning. She told him about her kindergarten students, her dreams of expanding literacy programs in underserved communities, her childhood on her family's sprawling property where she'd spent more time climbing trees than attending society functions. He'd found himself sharing things he rarely spoke of, his mother's coldness, his father's relentless pressure, the loneliness of success. She'd listened without judgment, her fingers tracing patterns on his skin as if mapping territories previously unexplored. Sophia stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, shyness returned as she registered their position, but it quickly gave way to a sleepy smile. "Good morning," she murmured. "Good morning." His voice sounded different to his own ears, softer, less clipped. She propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face with those perceptive blue eyes. "Any regrets?" Question was brave in its directness. The old Nathaniel would have deflected, offered reassurances without substance. Instead, he reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "Only that I didn't read your letter sooner." Her smile widened, relief evident. "What happens now?" "Breakfast?" he offered, the mundane suggestion making her laugh. "I meant more generally, but breakfast sounds perfect." They ordered room service and ate on the balcony overlooking the city, comfortable in matched hotel robes. Sophia spread strawberry jam on toast with childlike enthusiasm, and Nathaniel found himself watching her hands, the same hands that had moved with such intuitive understanding across his body hours before. "We should discuss logistics," he said, eventually, business instincts reasserting themselves. "Your relocation, the public narrative, your career plans." Sophia set down her toast. "Do you want me to continue teaching?" "Do you want to continue teaching?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "It matters to me." "Then of course you should continue." He was surprised by how easily the words came. "We'll find you a position at a good school in Seattle." She studied him over the rim of her coffee cup. "And us? What are we now, Nathaniel? Still a business arrangement with benefits? Or something else?" The question hung between them, weighty with possibility. The pragmatic answer would be to maintain boundaries, keep expectations clear. But the memory of her letter, of her honesty, demanded reciprocal courage. "I think," he said carefully, "that we have an opportunity to build something neither of us expected." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I don't know what to call it yet, but I'd like to find out. Together." The next 3 weeks unfolded in a pattern of cautious discovery. Sophia moved into his penthouse, carving out spaces for herself, bookshelves filled with children's literature and classic novels, a corner dedicated to grading papers, wildflowers in simple vases where there had once been austere architectural arrangements. Nathaniel found himself leaving the office earlier, curious about her day, about the new school where she'd secured a position starting in the fall semester. They established rituals, coffee on the balcony before work, walks along the waterfront on weekends, cooking together in the evenings, where he discovered her culinary skills far exceeded his own. In the boardroom, he remained the calculating, precise CEO. But increasingly, He found himself applying lessons learned from Sophia, listening more attentively, considering the human element in business decisions, finding value in perspectives different from his own. The most profound changes happened in private. For the first time in his adult life, Nathaniel allowed himself vulnerability. When a major acquisition fell through, he didn't retreat into cold silence but shared his frustration. When memories of his father's criticism surfaced, he spoke them aloud rather than burying them in work, and Sophia blossomed in response, her natural warmth expanding to fill the spaces he opened. She challenged him when needed, supported him, without question when that was what he required, and gradually, day by day, the arrangement mandated by contracts and family expectations evolved into something neither of them had dared imagine: partnership. Autumn whispers. 3 months after their wedding, autumn painted Seattle in amber and crimson. Leaves skittered across the penthouse balcony where Nathaniel stood, contemplating the changes a single season had brought. Reed Technologies had successfully launched its sustainability platform, incorporating the winter's patents with remarkable results. Stock prices had soared, partnerships had expanded globally, and business publications heralded Nathaniel as a visionary merging technological innovation with environmental responsibility. Yet standing in the cool October air, it wasn't business achievements that occupied his thoughts, but the sound of Sophia's laughter drifting from inside the penthouse where she was speaking with Olivia, who had become a frequent visitor and unexpected ally in transforming the sterile space into a home. The door slid open behind him. "Conspiring against me?" he asked without turning. "Always," Sophia replied, slipping her arms around his waist and resting her cheek against his back. "But in the most loving way possible." He turned in her embrace, still marveling at how natural it felt now to hold her, to be held by her. "Should I be concerned?" "Terrified," she confirmed with mock seriousness. "Olivia's helping me plan our 3-month anniversary surprise." "Is that a traditional milestone?" "It is for us." She pulled back slightly, studying his face with the attentiveness that still sometimes unnerved him, her ability to see beneath his carefully constructed facades. "You're preoccupied. The Singapore expansion?" Before Sophia, no one would have noticed the subtle tension he carried. Before Sophia, he wouldn't have answered truthfully. "Partly," he admitted, "but also, my parents confirmed they're attending the charity gala next week, separately with their respective new partners, but still, it will be their first time meeting you." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "And you're worried about what they'll think of me? Or what I'll think of them?" "I'm worried about what they'll try to make you think about me," he said quietly. "They have very different but equally unflattering narratives about who I am." Sophia cupped his face in her hands. "Nathaniel Reed, I am a kindergarten teacher. I spend my days with tiny humans who believe they can convince me the dog ate their homework when they don't even have a dog. I think I can handle 2 adults with transparent agendas." Despite his concerns, he laughed. "You're remarkably confident. In us?" "Yes." She reached for his hand. "Come inside. Olivia's leaving, and I have something to show you." In their bedroom, Sophia retrieved a package wrapped in simple brown paper and tied with twine. "Happy 3 months," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Inside was a leather-bound journal, the cover embossed with his initials. He opened it to find the first page inscribed in her familiar handwriting. "For the thoughts you're learning to share. For the journey we're creating together. For the man you've always been and are allowing yourself to become." The subsequent pages were blank, possibilities waiting to be written. "It's perfect," he said, meaning it. "There's one more thing." She handed him an envelope, cream-colored, similar to the one from their wedding night. The letter inside was shorter this time. "Nathaniel, 3 months ago, I offered you my truths without knowing if they would be welcomed. Today, I offer you my heart knowing exactly where it belongs. I've fallen in love with you, not the CEO or the business alliance, but the man who leaves coffee by the bed on early mornings, who listens to my stories about 5-year-olds with genuine interest, who is learning to trust not because it's strategic, but because it's freeing. You don't need to say it back. There's no contract or obligation here. But I wanted you to know that what began as an arrangement has become the great privilege of my life. Yours, Sophia. Nathaniel read it twice, emotions tightening his throat. When he looked up, Sophia was watching him with the same vulnerable openness she'd shown that first night. I had a different plan for tonight, he said, setting the letter down carefully. Dinner reservations, a speech I've been rehearsing for days, but you've always been braver than me at saying the important things. He crossed to his closet, retrieving a small box from his safe. This was my grandmother's, he explained, opening it to reveal a vintage emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. The only person in my family who understood that wealth without connection is merely possession, not prosperity. She left this with a note saying to give it to someone who made me feel rich in ways money cannot. Sophia's eyes widened. Nathaniel, I love you, he said simply, the words that had once seemed impossible now the most natural truth he knew. Not for the business advantages or social convenience, but for how you've helped me rediscover parts of myself I thought were lost. For how you've created space for growth without demanding it. For how you've shown me that vulnerability isn't weakness but the foundation of genuine strength. He took her hand, sliding the ring onto her finger alongside her wedding band. We did this backward. Marriage first, love after. But I'm asking now what I should have asked then. Will you build a life with me based not on arrangements or expectations, but on this connection neither of us saw coming? Tears spilled onto Sophia's cheeks as she nodded. Yes, she whispered. Always yes. Later, as Seattle's lights glimmered against the autumn sky, they lay tangled together in the quiet darkness of their bedroom. Sophia's head rested on his chest, her breathing synchronizing with his own. What are you thinking? She murmured, half asleep. Nathaniel considered the empire he'd built, the acquisitions and mergers that had once defined his success. None, compared to this. The quiet miracle of finding connection where he'd expected only transaction, of discovering that the most valuable contract was the unwritten promise between two hearts. That some arrangements, he said softly, pressing a kiss to her hair, are worth renegotiating into something far more valuable.